Alright, let's get ready for round 2 of the Indiana Regional Championship between Zach Zamora on the left and AJ Lasley on the right. Now, I do not know too much about AJ. Have not really heard his name before, so sorry for that. Zach, I have met a few times. I believe he's from the St. Louis area. Not 100% on that, but pretty sure I've actually played against him before in tournaments. So he always kind of uses strange decks. You know, they're pretty much mainstream decks, but they have a little twist to them. So we'll see if he brings anything wacky to the table today. He's a very solid player, though. And, hey, speaking of wacky, there's a Blitzel. Don't see that very often. So, looks like this will be some form of Zebstrika Rayquaza Eelektrik deck. This is very interesting because we do not see Zebstrika featured very often. But an early disconnect lock can do a lot of damage. So this seems like, you know, we've seen Victini used to stall, you know, with the Thunderwave paralysis. But Zach, you know, he's taking a more reliable approach, it seems like. So this is kind of cool, you know. Instead of saying, alright, I'm just going to sit here with Victini and paralyze you, Zach is going to go, I'm actually just going to disconnect you so that you cannot catcher my stuff. I'm going to slow you down, you can't play any items. And then I'm just going to build up a giant Rayquaza, and I'm going to Dragon Burst you. In the process, I'll be doing 40 damage too. So, I kind of like this deck concept. We'll see if it actually works out here. Now, AJ, he's playing a Darkrai Terrakion EX deck. Usually when I hear Darkrai Terrakion, you just think, you know, the normal Retaliate kind of thing, but he is playing the EX. So we'll see if that comes into play. That is actually going to be very, very good in this matchup. If he can get a Rock Tumble, Zebstrika is weak to fighting and only has 90 hit points, so that should be interesting to see kind of the interaction between these two decks. He plays an N, gets himself 6 cards here, but yeah, I mean, 2 energy on that Rock Tumble will knock out Zebstrika, so you got to think that Zach is not looking forward to playing against this. That is probably the one thing he did not want to see, you know. The big Terrakion EX is probably his biggest downfall when using a deck like this. You know, Zebstrika is not a very strong Pokemon. Just 90 hit points. Gets knocked out very easily. Only does 40 with Disconnect. Its strength comes from the fact that it can disrupt your opponent. So, I don't know. We'll see. You know, when I tried out Zebstrika decks, I actually favored playing Giant Cape with it because it would give it that extra 20 hit points that it really needed to survive a lot of attacks. For example, it would survive Night Spear. It would also survive Rock Tumble here from Terrakion EX. But we'll see if Zach plays that. It's hard to fit all these cards in there. But I do feel like Giant Cape works very well with Zebstrika just because your opponent can't Tool Scrapper it away. And you'll be able to survive a lot of different attacks. But, yeah, he does not have much. This is going to be a big agility flip. And he gets Tails. So, he's opening the door for AJ to get some sort of, you know, energy switch, Rock Tumble, or he could just have absolutely nothing and not attack this turn. That is also an option. So, AJ, he's got like an enhanced hammer. He's got a dark energy. Oh. I thought he had a dark in his hand, but it looks like he doesn't even want to play it. That's an interesting choice. You definitely played on an energy in that situation. At least, you know, maybe Confuse Ray or do something, you know. Give your Darkrai an extra energy to be able to Night Spear next turn. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he doesn't have an energy, but if you do, you definitely need to play one there. And all of a sudden, Zach, he's in a dominant position. He has the Zebstrika going. You know, he's got a Lightning in the discard. He can start powering up that Rayquaza EX. He puts down a shiny Rayquaza as well, you know, and a Rescue Scarf. So instead of Giant Cape, he's opting to go Rescue Scarf just to keep his disconnect lock in place. I don't mind that either. It gives you just a more consistent stream of disconnecting. I'm not sure which one I like more, Giant Cape or Rescue Scarf, but doesn't matter. Zach is playing Rescue Scarf, and he's the one playing here. So, he will disconnect here, does 40 damage, and your opponent can no longer play items. This is pretty rough to deal with if you're AJ. And it looks like... Alright, I was actually very wrong, so I apologize. He does not have an energy in his hand. And, yikes. This is one of those situations, man, where a Zebstrika might just knock you out of the game completely. Yeah, decks play so many items nowadays, you know, between Catcher, Dark Patch, Random Receiver, I don't know what else you would play. AJ looks like he plays Super Scoop Up, Enhanced Hammer, all these cards you can't even play, you know, Eelektrik, Tool Scrapper, Ultra Ball, the list goes on and on and on. None of those can be played right now. And that's just the power of Zebstrika. You know, Zebstrika kind of reminds me of that the Fruit Stripes gum. If you ever had that when you were a kid, for some reason I just look at it and think of that. I don't know why, but anyway, we're gonna see a Bianca from Zach. It looks like these guys kind of know each other. They're being pretty friendly. Earlier on, Zach did not cut AJ's deck, and the same thing just happened there. It's usually a sign of respect or friendship when you don't cut someone's deck. Shows you trust them. But, you know, AJ just looks to be in a horrendous position. You know, one more disconnect is going to put this, this Darkrai up to, let's see, 90 damage. And, you know, that's not actually anything significant. It could set it up for a shred. But oh, we get to fighting on that Terrakion EX. Alright, so this is the scary thing for Zach. This is where things can start to swing back around. You know, if we get a couple Rock Tumbles here, that can knock out Zebstrika, just doing 100 with Rock Tumble, because it's weak to fighting. And then it's going to force Zach to get a Fire to Dragon Burst the Terrakion EX. That's really where AJ's going to have trouble. You know, even if he can knock out the Zebstrika, then it's, oops, I have a Rayquaza EX ready to Dragon Burst you back to the Stone Age. And we're going to probably see that happen. Zach gets a Sky Arrow Bridge into play. That's a very useful card that we see. You know, it was seen last format with decks like CMT. You would play it with Smeargle, of course, but it's very good with Eelektrik because you can only Dynamotor to benched Pokemon, which means you have to promote a Pokemon, and you want it to have free retreat, so you can just Dynamotor to your bench Pokemon, retreat to it, and then attack. So Sky Arrow Bridge is pretty much a necessity in all Eelektrik decks at this point. If you're not playing Sky Arrow, you're probably doing it wrong, unless you're not focusing on these Pokemon with 1 retreat cost, then it's fine. Zacky's gonna, you know, use his Dynamotors. He's got 3 on the Rayquaza. You know, it's the other thing that's very nice about Zebstrika is that it prevents your opponent from playing Eviolite down. So now your Rayquaza is only going to need to do 180 as opposed to discarding the 4th energy if your opponent had an Eviolite. So you only have to discard 3 with Dragon Burst to do the 180 damage. And AJ top decks another fighting, so he will be able to knock out this Zebstrika, but, you know, you're pretty much locked down in this situation. Now, he's not out of it quite yet. You know, this is a matchup where if AJ can manage to knock out some Electrics, he can come back for sure. But look at the state of the game here. Alright, his Terrakion EX is probably getting knocked out by a Rayquaza next turn. Just a Dragon Burst. All it takes is a Fire. As Zach gets the Zebstrika back with his Rescue Scarf. If he just has a Fire energy, he can Dragon Burst for the knockout. And then what is AJ left with? A Darkrai with, let's see, 130 damage on it. That's not very good. It's going to get knocked out even by a Zebstrika at that point with a Lightning Crash. Does 80 damage anywhere. I believe that's what it's called. Zebstrika is actually a complete reprint of the old Eelektrik EX. You know, besides the HP and the EX tag, it has the same disconnect attack, and it has the same. Back then, it was called Mega Shot, which does 80 anywhere you discard all the lightning attached. So it's kind of neat to see this card reprinted. They literally changed nothing about it, besides you know, I mean, they literally changed nothing about the attacks. And it's still powerful enough to keep up with a power creep, which is kind of neat. You know, not really, because we don't see Zebstrika featured very often, but just the item lock alone is powerful enough to make this card still relevant. So we're going to see an N from Zach. You know, he's really digging for that fire energy. If he can get that, he will be able to Dragon Burst for 180, take the Terrakion EX out of play. Even if he doesn't, though, his backup plan is probably just going to be double Dynamotor to his Zebstrika, retreat, and then go ahead and Lightning Crash, knock out the Darkrai for 2 prizes. Then next turn he can just get a Fire and Dragon Burst. Should be too big of a deal. Let's see, what is Zach going to do here? He's probably just trying to decide what he wants to do with this. He could pull off a cute move where he catchers out Sableye, and then Lightning Crashes the Darkrai, but actually he can't even do that because there's a Sky Arrow out. And it looks like he's taking back the Zebstrika because, hey, he just played down that Blitzel this turn. Oops, that almost slipped past everybody. Alright, so there is an attachment and a Dynamotor, so the AJ is going to breathe in a little sigh of relief. That is, Terrakion EX will survive the turn. There's no fire energy. Zach, he probably should use another Dynamotor here. It can go to either Blitzel or Rayquaza. He's going to catch out the Sableye. This would be good if he didn't have a Sky Arrow in play already. To give the Sableye free retreat. Kind of a puzzling play there. Maybe he's just, you know, used to Sableye not having the free retreat from Sky Arrow. But you got to remember that gives your opponent free retreat as well. And that actually just kind of opened the door for more plays from AJ. You know, maybe if he could drop down a Darkrai, a Dark Patch, an Energy Switch, he could actually free retreat to the Darkrai now. But no, he's just going to get this Terrakion EX out. He's got some more Pokemon in his hand. Let's see if he does anything with them. Got a couple Energy Switches. No, he's not even going to bench any of his Pokemon, which is very weird. At this point, you would certainly just want to bench some more Pokemon. You know, there's no harm in benching another Darkrai or even that Terrakion in his hand. And now Zach's got the fire, and he's going to set fire to that Terrakion EX and just really start blowing stuff up. This is what happens when Eelektrik gets this powered up. He's even gonna have Zebstrika next turn to Lightning Crash again. Maybe knock out a Sableye. He'll go down to 1 prize after that. So he Dragon Bursts for 180, gets down to 2 prizes, and at this point AJ's got to be feeling like he's probably done for. He's got a Crushing Hammer too. This is a strange deck that kind of disappointed we didn't get to see this all play out here. But let's see, He's going to need a lot of cards to pull off even an attack this turn. In a perfect world, he would get a Night Spear off this turn. It's probably not too likely. He does have a Juniper in hand, so finally he will have a supporter. But he's going to Ultra Ball away, another Ultra Ball, and an Energy Switch. He might have been better off, you know, just kind of discarding more cards from his hand. And as he searches through his deck, we'll see what else he grabs. He's going to take another Terrakion EX. It's not going to be useful at this point. You know, it's kind of a slow Pokemon to set up. It takes 3 energy to really do the big attack. And that's why people usually just go with normal Terrakion instead. It just takes 2 energy to retaliate, and then if your Terrakion survives, you can do another 90 next turn if you attach again. So he's going to put down the normal Terrakion. There's a Crushing Hammer. This can be actually pretty significant if he can discard the fire. And yes, he's going to discard the fire from Rayquaza. This is one of the weaknesses of the Rayquaza Eelektrik decks. If they face Crushing Hammers and run out of fire energy, that is one way to lose the game. But no matter what, AJ will be going here for a Juniper. We'll see if he benches his Darkrai. He definitely should do that, because he needs somewhere to Dark Patch if he draws a Dark Patch. What's he gonna do? It's tough no matter what he does. He's pretty much down for the count. He's gonna go for Super Scoop Up. I don't think that does anything for him. I guess he's probably thinking, I need to get this Sableye off my field. It's just going to get knocked up by Lightning Crash, but if you scoop that up, you promote a Terrakion with no energy. And that is no good. So AJ really needs to make some sort of move at this point. I'm sure Zach really doesn't care because he probably thinks he can't lose, but you do have to respect the time limits. Alright, he decides to play the Super Scoop Up. Looks like he got it. Got a Tails. It's not going to do anything. I feel like we should have the Jeopardy thing going here. Alright, so he's going to Juniper and actually discard his Darkrai. I mean, at this point, just play it down. You already put down another EX. Why are you not just putting down the Darkrai? And, okay, he's getting a Dark Patch. He gets another Darkrai, fortunately. So maybe he'll be able to pull something off. Did he get another Darkrai? Am I seeing things again? For some reason, I just cannot see what's in AJ's hand. There's just something wrong with me today. Alright, so he gets a Fighting, puts it down upside down on his Terrakion, and he's going to pass. Alright, so nothing really amounting to anything that turn for poor AJ, who really hasn't had much go his way at all. And Zach, he gets another Zebstrika out here. If he can pull off like a switch, fire, he actually cannot get a knockout. He can't win the game this turn. But he'll probably just retreat, Lightning Crash for a knockout, and then just power up Rayquaza. And finish the game off with a nice Dragon Burst. That's what I'm thinking. Will he have a fire for the next turn, though? That's really the only thing standing in his way. And, well, standing between him and moving on to 2-0. This is round 2. Both the players are 1-0. One of these players will not be after this round, though. So he level balls. I think it just failed. Sorry, I didn't see if he took anything. Whoa, he's going to play an N. It's an interesting choice. I guess that's his only supporter. And he figures AJ just played a Juniper. If I don't have any other supporters and I'm going to draw a prize this turn, I should probably just get rid of this N now. Hopefully I'll draw into a supporter. This does two things. It lets him look at 2 new cards, and it also takes that N out of his deck if AJ were to play one himself next turn. Because if you look at it now, really all he has left to attack with are Zebstrikas, which, last time I checked, do not fare well against Terrakions. So if he doesn't draw into a fire soon, he might actually just get steamrolled by Terrakion. As weird as that sounds. But he's going to be able to Dynamotor. This is the nice thing about Eelektrik. At this point in the game, you really don't need too many cards from your hand to be able to play out, since you have your energy in your discard pile already. He's going to retreat to the Zebstrika. He gets one more Dynamotor. So number 2 goes to Rayquaza EX. And oh, he's just going to use Disconnect. Huh. I guess there's no downside to doing that. You know, if you Lightning Crash, you really just accelerate you getting knocked out. What I mean by that is, you know right now that AJ cannot possibly knock out your Zebstrika. It's just impossible. He cannot use items. So the most he can do is retaliate for 60 with his Terrakion. You know, unless he drops a Mewtwo and a double colorless, he cannot knock out the Zebstrika this turn. There's no combination of cards that will allow him to do this. He cannot play items, cannot play that Eviolite, as Zach immediately points out. So really, Zach is giving himself an extra turn to draw Fire Energy. It's very smart. Whereas if he used Lightning Crash, AJ could have just attached and used Retaliate and knocked him out. But I don't even know if he got an energy, did he? Yikes. This is just more and more painful things going against AJ, and yeah, he has to pass. So now we'll probably just see Zach disconnect here. And then You know, he still doesn't have that fire, though. Rayquaza EX cannot really attack without the fire. He's going to put 2 on... Or he's going to put the second on Rayquaza and then 1 more on his Zebstrika. So then he's going to disconnect for a knockout, and oh, he gets the fire. He gets the fire from his prize. So unless AJ plays an N, this one is all over, folks. And that's not an N. Does he have one in his hand? Does he have it? He keeps all of his cards so close. I don't even know how he tells them apart. And nope, that Bianca's not going to help you. That Sharon's not going to help you, and this one is over. So, I mean, he can take a knockout here in the Zebstrika, but then Zach just promotes his Zebstrika, Dynamotors to his Rayquaza, attaches a fire, retreats, and Dragon Burst for the game. Nothing AJ can do about it, not a single thing, now that he has used his N. Suppose he could just play a catcher and drag the game out, but that's an inevitable loss. And here, this game is all over, folks. We're going to see Zach Zamora move on to 2-0, puts down the fire, gets a Dynamotor, and he will have a Dragon Burst for the game. So I feel bad for AJ. That was a pretty bad game there, but Zach, you know, he played it very, very well. Zebstrika is going to move on to 2-0, so it's kind of cool to see. Thanks for watching, guys. This was round 2 of the Indiana Regional Championships. We'll be back with more soon. I am Pooka, and stay tuned for more Indiana Regional coverage.